Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guest today is Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me on. World Cup underway.
Yes, yes. Let's see. There are a lot of strong players who were eliminated in the last few days, especially the last round was especially brutal because almost all favorites, including Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So and so many great players were just eliminated.
Right,
Actually,
right.
them it was first round because they were qualified to start from second round on, and their first round became their last round. So
That's
this,
right. Yeah. It was definitely, the, I won't call them mice, but the people rated between 2,600 and 2,700, the tier below the elite, definitely roared yesterday. Yes, yesterday in the tie breaks and previously.
yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, several of our American friends came a cropper in the process. And I could start by showing the two who lost objectively drawn end games in the process. So, and then I've picked out there were some very interesting games played today um, that where I'm to see if I can make a point about the difference between playability of a chess game and the computer's evaluation of it.
Okay,
It's
interesting.
quite possible, in fact, that some players, and let's say even those of the rank below elite, are doing their homework and finding positions that where playability diverges from what the computers say. But first, let's look at the end games in question here. So
Okay,
this is Titas Streamovicius, a young guy. Surprised he's only 25-31 because I've been tracking his progress during the pandemic. Um, so I'm going to, well, actually, I'm going to quickly go through the opening because this is a case of having the illusion of being soundly outplayed by a younger player. So is Black. Um, and the first tiebreak game was drawn. So Black is playing enterprisingly here. Okay, but White has a little advantage. White starts playing very well. Um, it's like maybe Black's position doesn't cohere correctly because Black has had to fall back after making an initial feint of occupying the center. So Black is definitely on heel. White definitely has a slight opening edge here. It's a Carlsbad structure, but White is going to come forward in the king side rather than do a minority attack on the queen side. So here we go. Now we have a classic isolated pawn, but Black is not really organized yet to block it. White has two bishops and chances of an attack on the king. Okay. So White actually just playing to put pressure on key square. So Black is forced to occupy d5 and guard the b pawn. And here, I think Wesley So just let down his guard. So because of the attack on the f4 bishop, White couldn't play g5. But now Black is not going to have knight h5 in reply to g5 hitting the bishop anymore. So Wesley very not even taking much time for the move. Or I guess took 3.5 minutes. That is a fair amount of time. Played this move, and now this is White is just going to pile through in the center. Okay, it's not clear what Wesley So missed, but the knight can't move. White just wins a pawn on d5. White's bishop on e5 is anchored. So Wesley had to play this. Well, the flaw is that White plays that. So um, so I'm sure that this was just desperation at this point. White is clearly winning. Black's knight is trapped. So I mean, it would be two bishops for a rook, but with a advanced pawn, Black has to get rid of the pawn sooner or later. Might as well do it sooner. Um, okay, so now White is simply up a piece for two pawns, but you could even say White has the compensation because Black will come under attack on f7. So, we wouldn't bat an eyelash if So resigned this position. Well, maybe you don't resign a fast chess game in this position. So, uh, um, but anyway, okay. So, um, but this was not a fast chess game. Sorry, this was part of the regulation match. Um, okay, well, actually, a little bit. White has. It's a little bit hard to suggest White how to move forward. Well, trading a pair of queens or rooks, forcing the trade of rooks is generally would be a good suggestion. But actually, Black establishes a little bit of counterplay with the pawn on h4. It's not completely clear how to make progress for White here. Now, with the pawn on h4, Black is now going to have some value of annoying White with checks. But okay, we just keep on playing. White is going to achieve a completely won position here. Eventually, is able to effect a queen trade. And here we go. So now the queens are going to come off. Now, White can't trade queens here because then Black's king would be too active. It turns out that that White should actually eschew the queen trade. Okay. And just keep on playing to improve the position. It's not clearly when. Anyway, here, now the game, because Black's king is becoming active, this is an objectively drawn game. But it might not have been apparent to Wesley So. He might have thought, okay, we know what White's strategy is. Eventually just run Black out of squares and use Zugzwang to force weaknesses. So here we go. Okay, so Black has two passed pawns with a big group. White can block them. And in a position like this, it's pretty automatic that White's going to block them and eventually win them. However, the unseen dynamic is that Black can, in some positions, effectively go after White's king side, queen side. Okay, so if White plays, for instance, just automatic moves to go after Black's pawns, it turns out that this is going to liquidate. White is one tempo short of being able to prevent Black's king from coming into b3. So this is actually a dynamically drawn position. But Wesley So clearly was not aware of that. So to keep the equilibrium, Black should just play king f5 here. And the engine even shows that if you retreat, which looks suicidal, you're still going to be able to occupy e5 and d4 when White's king goes after h4. Anyway, Black played h3 to advance the pawns a little more. Now it's unclear to me whether White is objectively winning here. Probably not, actually. But anyway, we're playing this game over the board. So Black makes a attack on White's bishop, tries to get counterplay over here, but White stops it. Okay, now White is definitely stopping that counterplay. Black has to fall back or play b5, which is a little committal, but eventually you have to fall back. And okay, and in this position, actually not yet. So White blocks Black's king, and it looks now completely routine for White. But White actually made a bad mistake. So actually, somewhere in here, Black made a losing move. It may have been the h3 move. I haven't had time to probe this completely. By the way, it turns out that in order to win this position, White has to do a little bit of triangulation. White, there's just the right combination of tempi that enable White to go after Black's pawns. Let's see how it's. And unfortunately, I investigated this over the board how White wins this, and now I've forgotten. It's a okay. Don't trust the engine evaluations. It's there is a way for White to make progress here, but it involves bringing the king to the queen side. However, White played a4, and now actually the win is no longer there. But don't tell the players over the board. in this, whoops, I'm into my variation now. In this position, Wesley So resigned. He played King G4 and then realized, oh, I had enough. Resign because obviously I'm going to lose my pawns. So here's the continuation. So Black is going to lose a pawn, so you resign. Zugzwang. Well, actually, no. Weirdly enough, this is a drawn position. Black can just promote and play King H3, and there are 2 points to this position. One of them is that with the configuration of pawns on the queen side, White does not have time to go after the A5 pawn. Black will get the B3 pawn just in time. The way to picture it is after White is captured on A5, if Black can play King C3, then it's King B5, King takes B3, A5, King C3, A6, B6, B3, and Black is going to queen the same time White does. In fact, Black will even queen with check. So even a 2-file advantage in going after the pawns is not enough to win. However, it looks like White could just round up the G pawn, right? So you play King F3. Okay, well, Black plays here, and now White plays the bishop, and this, strangely enough, is the problem. King takes G3 is stalemate, and if White plays here, Black just hits the bishop again. And if White goes here, then G2 draws. Actually, it wins for Black.
It wins.
So this position, White cannot make progress. So Wesley So resigned in an objectively drawn, but not equal, as Emil Satovsky pointed out on Twitter, because the playability of the position was not equal.
Well.
Now, I jokingly asked Dan in our chat, Dan is in Japan and unable to make it today, whether anybody in correspondence chess has ever resigned a drawn position. And he said, yes, in one of my own games. Daniel was Black playing Jerry Asquith, and it looks like White's king is cut off. So White resigned, but it turns out if White can play, the only move to draw is Rook to G8 check. But after White plays Rook to G8 check, then King H2. I don't know. Maybe thought automatically Rook pawn with King cut off is a win, like knowledge that every schoolboy has. But in fact, White can even allow his king to be cut off more. Even the suicidal King D2 is a draw. So Black can play, of course, Rook E6. And then White's even more cut off. But White can just say, what are you going to do? Your king's cut off too. So I will say, at least it's not, you can't commit more suicide. You can't play King C2. In fact, you can't even play King D3, which maybe, again, is... So now Black is able to come and play Rook G8 and G1 and extricate the king. Okay. Well, I said it was not the only loss in a drawn position for our American hopefuls. Hans Niemann lost to Lorenzo Lodici, 2560 player. This is in the first of the rapid games. So he lost this game and then was unable to drum up enough play as White in the return. So Lodici has actually been winning for some time, has made a hash of a 2-pawn advantage in a Rook plus opposite color positions endgame. In fact, you see inferior move just here. But Lodici decided to go va banco and sacrifice the exchange to play with king 2 pawns against a bishop. But Black's king can come on the scene fast enough. And that would have, in fact, led me to believe that this was drawn. But we'll see. It's very touch timing. So Black is in a definite Zugzwang here. You might think that he wants to keep the king on f7, but White's just going to play h7 to promote. So Black has to fall back with the king, and then King G6. Okay, Rook G4, check Bishop G5. And now the critical position. So the most natural move is Rook G1, making the most space to be able to check the king with. But it has the fatal flaw that white's bishop will be able to cover the g1 square. Okay, so that is what Niemann played. And then after f6 and rook f1, white is able to play bishop e3. And now black cannot check the king anymore. And so now white is just going to play h7 check and win. So Niemann played here, and then Niemann gave up. So it turns out that that rook g2 or rook g3 is a draw. So let me set that up again now with this 6-piece table-based server. Set it for black's move. And this k4it.de is a fun server. There used to be a server for all 7-piece endings, but that ceased to function. There was a denial of service attack. It was held only on a computer in Moscow at the Lomonosov Institute. Anyway, so rook g3 would have been a draw. And then if white plays as in the game, then rook f3, and now, well, white could play bishop e3. It just doesn't do what white wants it to do. So for white, oops, I did not mean to do that. So white can play bishop e3. Black can actually win by taking it. Never mind. Okay, rook g3 check also draws. So h7 check, king h8, and so turns out white, this is as far as white can go. f7, black's rook just takes it. So,
both Wesley So and Hans Neumann, they were actually considered to be candidate material. They could
right, of course,
definitely qualify for the candidate tournament, but unfortunately, no longer a possibility.
Yep. So now I have a mini sensation from today.
Yes.
Noterbek Abdusadarov, definitely candidate material. He was in the last candidates, playing white against Jose Martinez, who was one of the people accused of cheating online. But this is interesting to me because, obviously I was involved with assessing Martinez's play a year plus ago. At the time, he was rated 26-12, and I measured Martinez as being 50 points underrated. So I really think Martinez is like a 26-70 player, and he's evidently going to get up there from this performance in the World Cup. He's gotten this far to the third round, and he's in a great shape after this game. And this again, so he played the Philidor. Okay. Now this is white has a 2/3 pawn advantage. And this is in the zone where Larry Kaufman, designer of the Komodo and Dragon chess engines, and Ribka, partner as well, said, well, this is where maybe it's objectively winning already. Actually, it's 0.7 is his threshold. But it's a playable game for black, especially if white decides to get very active and give black some counter chances on the queen side. Okay, so again, you have to say this is a normal opening advantage for white. White has more space. It could choose different ways to play. White could play with e5 in the center and just try to beat black's army down with pressure with rooks on the files, because white can occupy the center with rooks faster than black can. But white plays a kingside attack and, of course, gets met with a queenside attack in reverse. And now white's edge is not so great, and black's game is playable. In fact, black will have the advantage in a couple of moves. So, so bishop e6. And if white does the normal thing and retreats the rook, well, then white is losing. Queen a5. This is just too strong an attack. So the idea is to keep the rook on d5 and play with the compensation. And now white has quelched black's queenside counterplay and can develop an attack on the king side, eventually landing a pawn on g6 at more leisure. Okay, so h4, here we go. So now we're going to reach a juncture where the computer is again giving white a substantial edge, but I really don't believe it. Okay, so again, so white has justified. It's possible the computers would have played a little differently for black. Black decides to give back the exchange rather than, can't really play g6. You're certainly going to get mated if that happens. And so you have to get rid of white's bishop. Now black falls back for defense and has this just in time to prevent white. So now here's the thing. Okay, so how playable is this for black? Okay, so let's see if we reproduce what the computer. So what the computer says white should do is white should play queen d4. Okay, so the computer says white should play queen d4. Then black plays queen c5. And now white plays queen g4. And black has to fall back with queen c7 because queen b5 was leaving the rook hanging. And then white can play queen f4. Now, this is definitely higher dimensional chess. But this maneuver, has now made it hard for black to oppose white's fatal idea of lining up bishop and queen on the long diagonal. Well, black can stop to some extent by playing this with bishop d4. Then black can make a jailbreak, as happens in the game. That's how black will get some counterplay. So it's hard to judge. Well, white decided to go about things in a more blunt fashion by playing bishop d4 right away. But this is mistimed. Now we have to rook e8. Black's pieces are more active. And this jailbreak gives black the advantage. So again, I think black's game was actually perfectly playable. I think it's really difficult for white to find the exact set of maneuvers that would preserve the advantage. So this now black has snipped off the d5 pawn. It certainly helped that black's game was on the active square of b5. Okay, and now black completes the game in a very neat fashion. It's not a strong edge according to the engine. The engine can superhuman defend this, but in human play, I'd expect black to win this. Black's moves are much easier to play, and it's now here where white begins making some real mistakes. So white has to play queen f2, and it may be that if he looks long enough ahead, black is going to win this anyway. But anyway, rook h4, and now black is able to carry out more of the attack. So, okay, and the rest you can see is pretty brutal. In fact, the d5 is a nice move, aesthetically nice move, but here it's a mating net, or vast loss of material on top of that, and Abdusadarov resigned. So enterprising play by Martinez. Now, another case of this with this is Erigaisi winning. So another case of black winning is we give credit to Levon Aronian, one of our only hopes. Is Jeffrey Shang, but I think he's behind the 8 ball. I have to look and see. But so this is again another point about playability of game versus what the engine says. And let me see is this where I'm going to see if I reproduce. I think it's in the other game. A case where I think the engine is actually quite wrong about the position. Okay, so on the one hand, this might be a little boring because bishops have come off. It's not quite a symmetrical structure, though. It's another Carlsbad structure. And again, the question is white going to play minority attack on the queen side, or is white going to try to use the advantageous center pawns? So white strikes in the center. And now, so white has a foothold in the center. And now we get enterprising play from both players, castling queen side. So there have been matches. There were matches that were supposedly honoring women, and other matches with no castling rule. What I would like to see is a match where you're allowed to castle only on the queen side, not on the king. I think that might be a fun thing to play. But anyway, here is a game from a match, and the kings are a little bit exposed. Who is going to be able to marshal play against the other king? Well, white now does come forward in the center using that center majority. And white has a little edge. White's been nursing a 0.3, 0.4 edge, which is a normal opening edge for a long time. But this is a very playable game for black. The rooks are happy. The knights are happy. Pawn structure is a little compromised and less space, but black can make moves. So we come in here and trade a pair of knights. And now the rooks are still happy on the center files. In fact, arguably, black is a tempo ahead of white because white has to play the natural rook HE1 to defend, and it's black's move. Well, structurally, it's a little better for white. Okay, so black decides to give the option of doubling rooks, attends to king safety. Actually, that's where black has to give back a tempo for white, and white decides to take advantage by playing g4 while it's check. But now white has extended himself a little bit. So, okay, so white's, both players is cut and thrust. White still has a little bit of an advantage according to the engine, but now Aronian is going to outplay his opponent. Okay, so now actually you could see that black is dictating the action a little bit, and it's here. It's the critical point of the game is right here. So white's trump in the position is to play d5, and you're going to have to get compensation. You're weakening black's pawn structure because it's hard to guard the h pawn. Or you can play queen f2 first, and then that allows black's knight to come in. But anyway, white plays a4. It's a little bit too optimistic. And now d5. And now Aronian, however, made a mistake and should actually have been in trouble. So black should just grab the pawn and let white come forward. But Aronian decided, not really in time pressure. This is a normal pace game. Actually, sorry, it is in time pressure. So this is seconds, not minutes. Yeah. So this is an effective time pressure. Both players are under a minute. But okay, cutting off here. So I won't criticize their play too much. Okay, so nice move there. Now white. So here, though, is where, however, white starts seeing things. So white should play knight b5 check. That was the point of the last move, sink the knight on a good square. But, well, d5 looks like a good square, too. But king b8, now actually black is a little better according to the engine. But it looks like white simply had a hallucination, thinking, okay, I can double up on this file, and, well, you can't take me? I don't know. Well, Aronian just captured on d5 with the queen, and white has no attack. It's not clear so this was right at the turn 40 time control. So, and the point is that when white plays queen c5, white only had 10 seconds left and got 30-second increment. And, well, this was turn 41 on the other hand. So white should already be showing the extra 30 seconds of time on the clock. So anyway, now it's obviously completely winning for black, and we'll just play over the rest of the moves. Okay, so credit to Aronian. And I have one more game to show that is a crush by Aragaisi. So the one case where the 2600s players um, uh, didn't succeed. But I just want to check to see if I get a reproduction. This is a Tarish gambit that actually works out well for black. Okay, so so I guess I don't know if this is formally a line of the Henning Shara gambit, but black is doing fine here according to the engine. But again, playability of the game. White is going to get a game. White has an extra pawn. Black, wins a side pawn, but now white has some advantages in the center. And in fact, white is going to be able to prevent black from castling if white so chooses. Okay, so there we go. Black cannot castle, and it's now a slight advantage for white. And let's see now if I can find the. So black comes under an attack, and then f6 is a careless move. And maybe I'm not finding the position where the engine says that two mistakes occur. Okay, no, it's not this game. So this game now just becomes a crush. So nice play by Aragaisi, who, along with Pragnananda and Gukesh, must be considered among the favorites.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, so that's the lowdown of today's play in the World Cup.
Well, the tournament has just started. There is just one real round was played, which was second, so-called, and today's third round tomorrow, and it's just the beginning of the tournament. And with each round, we will see more intense battles with more or less equal players.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see who will prevail. I think Karanyan has very good chances because he already won this tournament before, and his style is very good because he's very strong with both colors and in decisive shootout games. So I think he will be in the first three one way or another and will qualify for candidates.
Yeah.
So there will be essentially battle for another two qualifying players, and probably it will be two Indian players.
There are other tournaments going on. The World Corporate Championship started.
Yeah.
European Youth is finishing. The World Amateur. So there'll be more to talk about after those tournaments finish next week. But I'm sure we'll still be focused on the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken, thank you so much for today's program, and have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you next week, same place, same time.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye-bye.